The 2026 Formula One regulations are still more than a season away from being seen on track, yet technical discussions around their interpretation are already intensifying across the paddock. With manufacturers deep into development and homologation deadlines approaching, even small regulatory nuances are being scrutinized for potential competitive impact. As teams prepare for a new power unit era built around a revised balance between combustion and electrical energy, attention has increasingly shifted from broad concepts to detailed wording in the technical regulations. It is in these details that concerns are beginning to surface, particularly regarding how compliance will be assessed in real-world operating conditions. At the center of the current debate are Mercedes and Red Bull powertrains, which have been linked to a possible grey area in the 2026 engine rules. The focus is on the compression ratio of the internal combustion engine, defined as the relationship between the maximum and minimum cylinder volume during the piston stroke. Under previous regulations, the limit stood at 18.1, but for 2026, the FIA reduced it to 16.1, partly to lower the barrier for new manufacturers. Article C5.4.3 of the 2026 technical regulations states that no engine cylinder may exceed a compression ratio of 16.0. It also specifies that the measurement procedure must be carried out under ambient temperature conditions, approved by the FIA technical department, and included in the homologation documentation. This reference to ambient temperature has become the key point of interpretation. According to information circulating within the paddock, rival manufacturers believe Mercedes and Red Bull powertrains may have found a way to achieve a higher effective compression ratio at elevated operating temperatures, such as those experienced during a race. A higher compression ratio can increase thermal efficiency, allowing more power to be extracted from the same amount of fuel or maintaining performance with reduced fuel consumption. This aspect is particularly significant under the 2026 framework. Fuel flow remains restricted, while the FIA retains flexibility to adjust electrical deployment and harvesting parameters depending on circuit characteristics. Maximizing the output of the combustion engine therefore remains critical, even with the increased role of electrical power, and any efficiency gain could be valuable. At present, the true scale of any potential advantage is unclear. While competitors suggest compression ratios could approach previous levels under race conditions, there is no public data confirming whether figures reach 18.1 or remain somewhere in between. Estimates indicate that at the upper end, such an approach could be worth around 13 horsepower, but this remains speculative. The regulatory complexity arises from how compliance is defined and enforced. If an engine meets the 16.1 limit during static checks at ambient temperature, it satisfies the explicit measurement procedure outlined in the rules. However, Article 1.5 of the technical regulations also states that cars must comply with all regulations at all times during an event, raising questions about whether race conditions should also be considered. This places responsibility firmly with the FIA. Comparisons have been drawn to previous debates over flexible wings, where components pass static tests but behave differently at speed, eventually prompting revised testing methods. In theory, similar adjustments could be made here, such as conducting compression checks at higher temperatures, though the FIA confirmed last week that no such change is currently planned. In a statement, an FIA spokesperson said the regulations clearly define both the maximum compression ratio and the method for measuring it, adding that the procedure has not changed despite the lower limit for 2026. However, the Federation also acknowledged that rule or procedural adjustments could be considered in the future if necessary. Time pressure complicates the situation further. Power units must be homologated by 1st March 2026, leaving limited scope for fundamental redesigns. Italian media have reported differing views on whether all manufacturers could adapt if required, though these reports remain unconfirmed and highlight ongoing discussions between the FIA and engine suppliers.
The fact that Mercedes and Red Bull powertrains are repeatedly mentioned has also drawn attention, particularly given personnel movements between the two organizations in recent years. Such transfers can accelerate the adoption of similar technical concepts, even if execution remains complex. If the FIA opts not to intervene before the season begins, other manufacturers may be forced to respond, potentially relying on the ADUO system, which offers additional development opportunities to those lagging in combustion engine performance. Even then, Any correction could take time, with consequences extending beyond 2026. For now, the issue remains unresolved, with all parties interpreting the regulations through different lenses. The FIA faces the challenge of ensuring a level playing field while avoiding disruption ahead of a major regulatory reset. What's your take on this situation? Share your opinion below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more Formula One updates.